I thought it would be highly relevant to show firsthand how we go about building out these initial go-to-market processes based on the idea of finding a stealth offer by mining situations and sending diagnostic messaging that helps you uncover the types of offers that your market loves through sales call transcripts, through iterative testing, and then eventually creating a beautiful GitHub knowledge base where you have full offer clarity, you have a clear understanding of what people care about, you have your unique mechanisms that make you a category of one, and that feeds the rest of your go-to-market flywheel so that you don't have to change messaging every 2 months. So you have a clear sales cycle. So you have extreme velocity extremely quickly because you can test 48 different offers in the span of 90 days. And you become a category of one because you're never racing to the bottom with guarantees and sloppy trials. So we're going to dive into Claude Code. And if you're intimidated by Claude Code, don't be. It's basically like using Claude with all of your projects. The only difference is that all of your projects and skills are immediately accessible and more context can easily be brought in by spawning subagents. So you don't have to worry about your context window breaking down. You don't have to worry about copy and pasting so much information in back and forth. So I'm going to walk you through a live example of building out the initial go-to-market strategy to show you exactly how all of this works so you can understand and use it for yourself. All right, so this is Claude Code deployed inside of Cursor. You don't have to use Cursor. You can literally use anything, but I like to be clear about what you're looking at. And what we've done here so far is we've pulled the kickoff transcript. We've ingested a go-to-market research file. We've gone through client onboarding notes. And we've done all of these wonderful things. And we've done them in the course of around 25 minutes. So we've created kind of our knowledge system. And the next thing we're actually going to do is we're going to go ahead and do go-to-market research on the second kind of service offering they have. So I'm going to say is I would like you to call our go-to-market research system on the back end. And let's see if Whisperflow is working again, because it wasn't working the last time I tried to record. And I would like you to go ahead and actually deploy a sub-agent in order to execute this task and orchestrate it. And you're going to use our go-to-market research skill in order to execute upon this. Follow through with the entire skill and make sure it becomes its own standalone document. And this is going to be conducted on Tensor Lake, and it's going to be conducted specifically on their agentic platform. And please pull from the kickoff call summary to get a technical understanding of where you should direct your research based on that. Awesome. So it's working. That's wonderful, which means I can just talk and not type loudly. And so to give you some context on what we've done here. So the reason it's really, really important to go through a kickoff while this kind of figures its thing out is that there's going to always be a gap between a founder's understanding of their product and what is said on a sales call. There's always going to be a gap between what is understood by a prospect and said by a prospect and what they actually mean. So what we've done is we've gone through their sales call recordings, we've summarized them, we've run gap analysis, we've extracted buyer psychologies, what they talk about, the questions they ask, and even the questions that may not be answered very well. But we've also gone through a kickoff where we tried to extract the founder's unique taste. And one of the exercises we go through is basically trying to package the product into a neat little box. In this case, we were focused on the agentic side because I think that's going to be much, much easier to sell. And the document ingestion is actually just complementary to the holistic platform anyway. So they do document ingestion better than anyone else, but document ingestion on its own may not be something compelling to switch over from. It may be something that's a little bit more demand capture, not demand generation, because you can't paint the picture quite as well of an entire sort of outcome. And so it looks like it's found our go-to-market strategy skill. It's staged it. It's ready to basically pull together everything that needs to be executed. And I'm just going to say yes, but let's get a sub-agent to do this, and then build the required file and return the file path to you to have to review. Great. So we've approved that plan. I'm going to turn on edit automatically now, and it's going to go ahead and just do that work while we chat about where we're at. And by the time it's done, we should be able to move on to actually building out the stealth offer and kind of building out our initial offer matrix and who we want to target and what we want to say. And so one of the exercises we go through is this idea of like fitting it into a box. And so I love asking founders a simple question, which is just basically fill in the blanks on this sentence. Tensor Lake is the X of Y. And the idea here is that they're supposed to pick a company name and pick a thing, okay? So for them, it was Tensor Lake is the Vercel of agents, or Tensor Lake is the Lang graph of agents. And to give you like a summarized version of exactly what these guys are doing, the agentic side of the platform is basically meant to be the fastest way to go from an agent to deployed into production. So the fastest way to go from one execution to a million, okay? And that's super valuable for any prospect. But how do we describe that value and how do we describe it to different situations, right? And so as we've gone through this sort of initial research, and so I'll bring up the master MD file as well. As we've gone through this initial research, you can see I've talked about like the two product lines. It's actually described them as demand capture versus demand generation itself. And I'll actually make this document a little bit bigger so we can look at it more clearly. Yeah, let's go ahead and approve these plans. Sounds good. And so what's happening is we need to make a decision on two different offers. And excuse me, Lambda for agents is actually what we described it as, which is why it's good to have this knowledge here. We take agents from one run to 1 million in 60 seconds, 1,000 requests in 30 seconds versus 3 weeks. And it's this idea of speeding up the deployment process. And so this is where it's important to kind of describe where what this enables, right? So the level of document ingestion, right, means that you have a technical team and you are eliminating the gap between a technical team and the skilled workers, the niche experts within a business. And so this applies to ACORD forms, bank statements, financial documents, contracts, legal, medical records, etc. However, this is not going to be effective unless that team has development staff on the roster. You're not going to be able to take someone from knowing nothing to being able to deploy AI agents at scale, right? So ideally, right, these companies should have AI and ML engineers, data engineers, VPs of data, etc., that are building production AI applications. And in fact, I would break apart this kind of initial ICP and I would say that we want these people to be on the team and operating, and especially if they're fresh, in lean teams. And the argument that we might want to make with something like this is that you can now have a reasonably lean team without communication breakdown between departments and deploy from, an expert, a niche agent in days, not months, right? That's the argument. It's going to be like a time savings argument, and they can skip kind of all the processes. The second thing is that it unites everything you need within agent systems into one house, right? You don't have to have one software over here on a cloud instance, another over here on a cloud instance, etc. The third thing is that it's completely SOC2 compliant, which means we can target enterprise. But are those the things that are compelling? Are those the things that make them different within the confines of the market? Not necessarily, right? So what we actually want to do is we want to properly identify, and this research is going to surface it for us once it's done. And I'm actually going to go ahead and turn on bypass permissions. Now it's actually active. What we actually want to be able to do here is we want to be able to surface where Tensor Lake occupies its own space, right? Everyone's going to be building agents. Everyone's going to use some sort of methodology that's supposedly faster. Everyone's going to do X, Y, and Z. But how do we connect this to day-to-day business outcomes and their, what I like to call worldview, right? Our goal is worldview and pain points. So there's going to be pain points around infrastructure. There's going to be pain points around building the agents. But we don't necessarily have to make it about that, because we may not be selling to the individual engineer, right? We want to sell to the bigger business as a whole. So the product needs to enable the engineers, but does the engineer day-to-day, is that the thing that matters? Or are maybe the outcomes that are created a little bit more important? And so this is where you need to think about what is unsaid versus said, and what type of objections may surface that you need to be able to address within the confines of your offer. And so we have all sorts of target personas. We have different things here that will give us inspiration, scalable document AI systems, preserve context, provide citations, integrate easily, document intelligence, queue structure, single serverless API, scale from 1 to 1 million documents without managing a thing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But the thing that actually matters, and as you like go through this, I think, is this modal versus temporal, right? This is like a really, really big deal. The second thing that matters here is that it's not asking you or forcing you to align with their agent methodology. It's not forcing you to build your agent on the platform, because that's a really hard argument to make. There's 100 different ways to execute that. Instead, it's saying, look, we will be the knowledge layer only, and we'll be the best way for you to deploy this at an enterprise level, right? It's about deployment in a production environment. And so that means we can narrow our focus to a more refined ICP. We want people that are already building. And that gives me inspiration immediately for the types of things we might go after in terms of data points. We're going to want to go after potentially more mature hires, right? We're going to want to go after potentially, and I'm actually going to write this down. So after this research finishes, here's some thoughts that we need to dig into based on the evidence that we surface. What we're discovering here is that Tensor Lake sits at the point between where a startup deploys an agent, or right before deployment. So they've developed an agent. They might be on the cusp of finishing an agent's development, or they might have a few little things that they need to get right in terms of their knowledge systems in order to get this agent live and effective. But you're not just going to occupy that space. What Tensor Lake is going to occupy is the space after that to get it from 1 run to 1 million runs, right? So we've got this framing. And the reason, right, we can't just have a thing we do. We have to have a reason why we are a category of one. Not only do we do that, but we make stateful agents, right, 100% done for them in 60 seconds. That is huge, because with a stateful agent, work is lossless, is the way we can describe this. And maybe that ends up being into our messaging because of this idea of like lossless video, lossless audio. Maybe you can have lossless agents, and that creates our category of one, our stealth offer. Something for us to play with as a unique mechanism is lossless agents, because we're not only giving them the most accurate document ingestion layer for at-scale document ingestion across these industries, but we're also providing them, losslessness in the form of agents don't stop halfway, right? They're going to go ahead and pick up the task where they left it, whether that's hours later, days later, meaning that adoption for your non-technical staff members is easy because they don't have to learn ways to reset an agent. They don't have to stop work one day and then restart from scratch the next day if they're going to be triggering this. And same goes for all of your agentic workflows. The second thing is that we're not forcing them to outsource building their business. And so we can actually position against the market as a result of this, because we can say, look, you are, a lot of dev houses are going to come to you and say, we're going to build you the perfect agent, but perfect agents are derived from your own unique taste. What we do is we make it the easiest possible to get that taste ingested into an agentic absorbable form and then deployed, so you can actually experience the benefits of agents instead of fist fighting with, we'll pick a software, you tell me the software that they would be using, but maybe it would be fist fighting with Salesforce or AWS or Azure, or fist fighting with Kubernetes. We handle the entire setup, right? You don't need a DevOps team to deploy your systems. And so maybe, like, I want you to tell me what types of hiring signals are going to be most relevant, what type of job descriptions. And specifically, I want you to tell me what is going to exist in non-technical team members' social media profiles on LinkedIn in terms of keywords that are going to allow us to surface the correct situations for us to go after. Okay. And I always get nervous after a really, really long statement like that, to be honest. And here we are, we're getting VP of engineering, we're getting head of AI, We're going to get head of innovation, things like this. I already know. And so, yeah, we've got spoken objections straight from the transcripts. We've got, and I haven't read any of this yet. This is just something that's been basically one shot, right? By the system that we've built out here. And to be honest, I've probably gone ahead and used this a little bit too early. And I haven't actually created the right, pattern for my skill over here to make it run as a sub agent. But yeah, this is going to continue. I've distracted it a little bit with this statement. So I'm actually going to copy this statement just in case. So it knows that it's something to look at earlier. And basically, some of the things that exist are problematic is that it's Python only. So we're going to have to find a way to potentially make sure that we're going after Python developers. And now we know that that's going to be a job description scraping concern. And our goal here is to create these campaign briefs, right? That give us kind of a holistic understanding of the needs of individual companies, right? And so we can see here that there's spoken, pricing seems high. It's not actually high. Open source options gets you 80% there. Feel free to try it. Yeah, you can definitely build in-house, but can you build in-house and have it integrated directly into a full agentic platform? So part of this is that we need to do a really good job of taking these things and making good arguments against them, right? So this is the gap analysis. And then we have technical constraints and we have messaging guidelines. So we've got this accuracy. Nice. The accuracy gaps that stops embarrassing AI outputs. System that doesn't lose your work when something crashes. Serverless, object store under the hood. Nice. Compliance team will actually approved. Doesn't break out 100K documents. Okay. So these are things that are like highly technical though. So what we need to do is we need to take these things and we need to make them personable and understandable to other key stakeholders, because at the end of the day, not every team is going to have only a technical decision maker. So our job is to take these in the master document and we need to actually go ahead and build out other types of documents for non-technical buyers to truly understand, right? So this is going to give us a lot of really, really valuable insights into the direction we should take. And we can see here the types of calls that have happened, consulting versus otherwise. And as we go through it, what we're going to surface is sales enablement gaps, right? So no ready assets, right? Azure comparison one pager, OEM, translate features to business outcomes. And so this is now not only informing our stealth offers, right? But it's also informing the types of call to actions we can consider for lead magnets, right? Can send you over a quick one pager that compares Azure to us, right? For Azure users, right? And that could be an entire simple little interest-based vertical that we test. There's a big problem with their ability to translate features to business outcomes. So that's going to be really what the stealth offer is all about and where AI comes into play. We want to be able to look at an individual business and actually define the type of business outcomes that they may want. And so an entire step towards our go-to-market process, I can tell you right now, is immediately going to be, as we segment out these markets, to define specific business outcomes people or types of businesses are trying to obtain from this process. Like the outcome they're trying to obtain is that they want their chief compliance officer's brain to be able to look at 1 million documents a week instead of 100, right? And make decisions, right? I'm going to put pause on there and we'll come back once this research is finished. And then we can wrap this up with generating initial messaging, generating initial offers, and using everything that we've discussed here to inform the go-to-market and campaign briefings that we're going to create. And you can see here that it's already surfaced a few sort of high intent buying signals. It surfaced the, resources that we have, tech stack based, Python is primary language, Azure, AWS as document tools. And these are baseline and rudimentary because they're are kind of just initial fluffy go-to-market research. We're going to take that and we're going to turn it into something way more powerful. And if we actually go over to our research summary, right? Go-to-market research MD, we'll have way more data, right? On exactly how this stuff works. And so as we build out our messaging, it's going to reference all of this data, not just the master summary document, just to be clear. All right, so we're back. I actually got a haircut since the last time you saw me. And our goal here is now to start mining our situations, describing them, turning them into campaign briefings, and then pulling out our initial messaging. So we can see here that we've actually pulled out this awesome kind of baseline positioning. And it's done a nice comparison table for us versus competitors. And so if we understand like the things they're using, right, we can now position against these in the way we describe our messaging. I think this idea of lossless production agents is like, it's got a little bit of a punchiness to it, which is where we want to be. And what I've done here is I've pulled together like a few initial places that we can test this. We're going to be doing some signal-based stuff around job descriptions, not just jobs that people are hiring for. And really, the important thing to mention here is that we're not just saying, look, you're hiring by my stuff. We're not just treating signals in this like rudimentary way. We want to abstract out from the signal the current situation that they're in. And sometimes it doesn't mean that that's going to be the only reason we reach out. In many ways, we'll probably end up splitting the list based on, you know, how big is their technical team right now? For instance, like, do they have DevOps or not? Because clearly DevOps is going to be a big piece of the puzzle for this. And so the next thing we want to do, focus on how to enhance the overall client really speeds up. Second thing we're going to want to do is that we've kind of identified here that AI automations, agencies, and agentic AI development firms could be a good target audience, because the fact that this brings things under one wheelhouse so that people can deploy agents, and also the fact that it can be deployed onto someone's private cloud environment, means that agencies could have a unique advantage in the way that they deploy AI development for companies that they work with. So that could be a good way for white label or even standard partnerships. And then we've surfaced here that we have these hiring signals. It's done and abstracted those out. It's got titles and description keywords that we're going to want to expand on. And so I'm actually going to say that. As you go through this process, be sure to expand on the types of description keywords and their meanings within the confines of these campaign briefings. And just to be clear, for our campaign briefings, what we're probably going to want is to have briefings and different splits for those briefings. And so using our campaign briefing skill, what we're going to want to go ahead and do is have our hiring-based campaigns, which are going to be based on those keywords and job descriptions. And the key split data point that I think is going to be important for us testing these offers in different meaningful ways is going to be A, Python or not Python, based on their tech stack. And then B, do they have a DevOps team or do they not have a DevOps team? Because we have these awesome tagline options, lossless agents, zero crashes, zero lost work, zero DevOps. And then we obviously have this idea of like document ingestion that could be quite powerful. And they all work together to create this awesome production layer, right? Production ready layer that's instantly deployable for teams, right? And then the second thing that I think is really important here is that we need to build out our logic for going after these non-technical positions. Make sure that we're really just focusing on non-technical roles that are clearly thinking about AI and agentic implementation. And then finally, we're going to have a much larger bucket of just startups that are early stage, they have money, they have capital they want to deploy, and they need to know the best way to deploy it. And so we're going to make the argument that this is the fastest way without hiring a big team to go to basically deploy at the speed of thought. Like, that's my goal here. I want to say that they can deploy at the speed of thought. And this seems to be like, to me, like a pretty sexy way to describe the USP. And then over time, what I want you to do is, as you build out these, is also create campaign briefings for each of our core segments. And so I think this could actually be one big briefing because it's going to operate pretty similarly. But what we need to do is we need to scrape the websites of our primary vertical companies, and we need to then do deep research on each individual one to identify where they are going to be seeing the main changes happen, and to identify the types of agentic systems that they want to create specifically. So we can make the argument that we're not just taking them from agent deployment to deployment, we're taking them from their head of compliance manually reviewing 100 documents to their taste being deployed to an agent across 1 million documents across their business. And that type of internal transformation is so much more powerful than just some of these buzzwords to the average person. We need to make sure that we're merging this like technical ability with more plain language. And then what I want you to do for each of these is spawn individual sub-agents that go ahead and run our cold email copy V2 and optimize for punchy delivery. And as it runs through that process, it should just make sure that each briefing is filled out with copy options based on our best practices and based on this idea of without DevOps, lossless agents. Really, really love that. And then that speed to outcome, not speed to deployment, speed to specific outcome is the way we're going to make this a stealth offer that aligns with each individual person's worldview. And that was a lot of talking. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this in plan mode to prep for this. And we can say we have this like anti-dev shop positioning. We're going to be using this for sure. And I actually want this to be one of the kind of pieces of the puzzle, okay? Within the confines of those tests, one of the things we should position against is this idea of outsourcing your development and outsourcing your expertise, right? Because the hardest thing is to make sure your taste gets carried through as a business to the outcome you're desiring, right? Dude, I think we are freaking cooking right now. I think we're cooking. We're not cooking in the sense that I don't think it copy and pasted that. So let's also make sure one offer per briefing focuses on this positioning. Keep in mind, we want to test as many of these ideas as possible. And importantly, be agnostic to which one could or should win. Wonderful. And so it's going to go ahead and plan that out for us. And yeah, I think we're hitting something good here. We have our our persona, our firmographics, our ICP. We've researched out most things. I'm going to go ahead and actually start taking a look at the new research that was finished on the agentic platform research. And this one was the one that was just prepared. And we can see it's done a pretty incredible job while we wait for this. And we're seeing some account scoring systems, which I don't think are all that necessary. We're seeing actual like conferences and events that are optional to attend. I think this is incredible. AWS reInvent, AI Dev World. I don't even remember programming this into the prompt, which is crazy. It's pulling out some data sources. These are just meh. If we wanted better data sources, maybe we could. It's saying, maybe we could scrape some discords. I think like that's actually a really good idea. And we will probably want to end up scraping some LinkedIn groups for specific titles that are, showing interest in proper AI development as a result of what they're doing. And then, nice. There's this idea of tool overload that we can potentially use as like maybe an expanded pain point, right? Like tool overload equals deployment complications, right? Yeah, there's definitely resistance to change. And that's why I think we need to make it about how easy it is as well. Okay, this looks good. And I think it's getting our primary personas a little bit off here. So we're going to have to make sure it adjusts to not selling to individual contributors and focusing more on top down. And we've got our product category keywords. It's interesting. Problem-based keywords, competitor comparison, temporal versus prefect. These are fine. I think we're not going to see a lot of those. So that's more for keyword monitoring. I don't think it's the most important thing. PyTorch being strong is interesting. We should definitely keep that in mind. Must-have technologies, PyTorch, great. Core positioning, teams that first need to deploy reliable, potentially serverless infrastructure platform. Durable execution. Point. 1 run to 1 million runs with 0. This is a really good, like, simple core positioning statement. For self for agents. Nice. Simplicity, speed, deploy, developer first. Nice. This is good. Deploy agents like you. So, like, actually, like, you can almost think of it like Figma for agents in this regard, right? And so that might be our less technical way of describing this to non-technical users, right? We go from design to website, right? Design to production. Let's see here. So it's got our critical files per offer angle. Great. Create campaign briefing. Good. Execution approach. And so this is also just going to run, and I'm going to let it run, and we'll come back. Okay. Okay, great. So we're back with initial copy here. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this initial copy and we're going to now go through one round of editing to make sure that we can really control final outputs. And this will also inform how we update our copywriting skill in the future. So you can see here, I'm in another different outfit. Got too hot in here. So lots of changes mid-video for this one. And so you can see it's getting the idea pretty well. Agent crashes. Building agents that crash mid-run is brutal. You lose hours of work. Your team scrambles to recover state. We built a durable execution for agents. If it fails at step 47, picks it up at step 47 with all previous context intact. No lost work. Worth exploring. So I'm going to update the call to actions off the rip, and I'm going to make note of that. So this is kind of how I like to do things. And the thing here is that you never really want to outsource your thinking to AI. Not yet. Your thinking is your taste. And so what we want to do is we want to go through this, take note of where we're seeing gaps, and then apply updates across the board. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to make the call to action something they would want to see at runtime. Build you, but perfect agents come from your taste, not a contractor's interpretation. And so the biggest gap we're going to have to solve here is that believability gap. And so I've already spoke with the team about this idea of potentially deploying examples of really, really good agents that do a fantastic job of retrieving the right information to prove their doc ingestion. So it can either be like, you know, upload 100 docs and ask a question, or even better yet, like, what if someone could just roll up and see like the Edgar docs, and you're like, ask any question about Edgar filings from yesterday. And it's just like that immediate kind of proof point, right? Okay, so call to actions need an update. We need to get rid of these M dashes. Your vision, our rails worth a look. I think that's not bad, actually. That's a decent call to action. Perfect agents come from your taste, not a contractor's interpretation. I think what we need to do is talk about this like elimination of back and forth, but that could be the follow-up for that sequence. So I think for this anti-dev shop angle, we're gonna make those the follow-ups. So I'm okay with leaving that as is. Outsourcing agent development means outsourcing your competitive advantage. We let you keep the advantage in-house. Your team builds the agent logic. We handle the infrastructure. Durable execution, scaling, reliability. Your IP stays yours. Interested. This one's meh. Very meh. Deploy at the speed of thought. Proof points, 1 to 1 million, 60 seconds. Great. Ooh, I like this subject line. Skip 6 months. Build product, not infrastructure. Most teams spend 6 months building a platform layer before shipping a single agent. We skipped that. From 1 run to 1 million run in 60 seconds. Your investors want speed. Ooh, I like this. So this is like an investor angle. I like that. Investor pressure. And then there's a whole other place where we could go off of, you know, teams potentially having, you know, small agile teams, right? We can talk about how you don't have to hire, you can scale your taste. What if your agent went from prototype to 1 million runs in 60 seconds? Awesome. No Kubernetes learning curves, no platform team hire, no 6-month infrastructure project. You built the agent, now ship it. We don't want to say that's what we do. We want to make sure it's a platform. So platform, not service. Great. Speed to outcome. Your board wants AI in production. Your team built the agent, but the infrastructure. I don't like board. Yeah, this sounds cringe. That is cringe. Board reference. Okay. We got the 6-second plot speed of thought, not speed of Kubernetes learning curves. And hey, this might make people laugh. That's not bad. And so far, all of these are fairly short. And so we'll probably just pick the ones we love. And then we're going to take those and we're going to turn them into longer versions to see if length adds value. And then our follow-ups are going to be the same for each angle and the way we expand on the ideas. Skip platform hire. You're hiring AI engineers or hiring agents, but that needs a platform team. Kubernetes, Terraform, queues. Here I would say like Kubernetes platform, Kubernetes Terraform queues, too many tools to count unless you use us. We built the infrastructure layer instead. We built a united layer that takes you from demo to deployment. 1 run to 1 million. Same headcount, production ready agents, worth exploring. I think that's good. Yeah. So let's start talking through the updates, and then we'll get this kind of finalized here, and then we'll have it update each of the documents. Okay, so we only want these to be 2-step sequences to begin with, for sure. And I'm just going to provide some pretty general feedback as well as specific feedback. So starting with general feedback, we need to make sure that the call to actions are super specific, okay? So if, for example, like deploy agents like you deploy websites, conversation on how to deploy agents like you deploy websites makes sense, opposed to a conversation around this idea that's valuable. That's more so the type of call to action we want to make. And then let's scroll on up and look at our notes. I think this idea of investor pressure is really interesting, and we can almost position entirely around this concept of speed to next round, and how it sets you up for your growth curve. Like, why delay your massive growth curve by another 6 months? The time is now, right? So quick deployment can be your unique advantage versus competitors. And we could even consider referencing competitors and something like that. And so you can see here that we're like really starting to surface different frames for the offer. And this is how you uncover your stealth offer. This is why I like to say it's uncovered, because you're going to roll through this and gain new realms of inspiration. And then I'm going to walk through this with the team, and they're going to be interested in, the way we go about doing things. And eventually we're going to get down to our perfect offers, and we're going to test them. And then we're going to let the market decide. And then we're going to add a lot of AI and different relevance to make them that much punchier. But that's the last 20%. So the next thing here is that we never want to really use M dashes, because they're like a very obvious sign of AI. And then we need to make sure that we're always positioning this as a platform, not a service. So calling it the layer is really good. Using those comparison notes, like I think it was Lambda of agents, for instance, I think are pretty good. We should try to leverage more of those to get this abstract concept across. And then let's be careful with like buzz terms without owning them. And so one of the ways we can like own a buzz term is in this section where you said Kubernetes, where did it? Kubernetes, Terraform queues. Nice. You're like, that needs a platform team. Kubernetes, Terraform, queues, right? This is where we can be like, 100 different tools in 100 different places. You could even say something like you literally start to forget how many tools are involved in your system. There's so many tools, you forget about them. Maintain punchiness in the copy structure, and that should be good. And then just remember that when we write subject lines, we want to do absolutely no capitals. And then in our follow-ups, as we write those out, so execute these updates based on the feedback provided, make sure it's emulated into the campaign briefing documents. And then we're just going to wrap this up and sync to deploy. That is a really good angle, by the way, this way of describing it. We should actually use that in the copy, by the way. And then what we want to do is after these updates, we want to create a follow-up that feels like a natural continuation of the conversation. So we're going to say something like, forgot to mention, and then we'll do a subtle inclusion of a case study. I'll be providing those shortly. You can leave like a little snippet gap for those to be included. And then we want to take that and we want to basically like, totally forgot to mention, big concept, right? Like ship without hiring a platform team, for instance, for angle 4. We want to rewrap that big concept and focus it on outcomes for them. And then just hint at 3 specific ways it enables that. So without a dev team, we're going to say things like ingest documents at, better Better than Azure, I can show you the benchmarks, right? Brackets, proof point. Deploy agents that don't forget what they're doing if they crash, right? Don't forget what they're doing if they crash, and scale them from one-time demo to 1 million runs for your team. And that's going to be the general essence of how we frame that second step. Okay. So run with that. Let's get that done. And we should be good to roll out our briefings and start our list building process. Awesome. So that's basically the process. We want to create categories of one, right? So you need to own a unique mechanism, anti-dev shop, lossless agents, deploy at the speed of thought. I like sync to deploy, like GitHub for agents. Yeah. Imagine if deploying an agent into production was as simple as a repo clone. Hoo-wee. That sounds good, right? And so my next steps here are just going to be to review, decide on winners, and then I'm going to take my 2 winners per step, and I'm going to make some micro adjustments manually. I'm going to share that with the lead GTME on this client's deployment, basically. And we're going to take all of that, right? Positioning against stateless, positioning against multi-tool rollouts, focusing on ease of use. We're basically just going to take all of that and we are going to make longer versions, right? So we want to make our tests as uniform as possible, short offer-based, longer framing-based. And then from there, we'll find out what the winning kind of baseline is, positioning-wise. And then we want to increase frame. So how that positioning aligns specifically to the worldview we're targeting, right? So again, the worldview of a startup founder is different. A Series A founder is different. Series B founder is different. We want to focus on that difference of worldview primarily wrapped around the offer, and then find the states of a business underneath those stages, states, not stages, and really just diagnose their situation with the messaging and make sure the solution we're pitching is wrapped around that diagnosis, right? So someone that's hiring a dev team is different than someone that's not. Someone that's a CTO with a small dev team is different from someone else. Someone with no DevOps is different from another person. Someone, leading the AI innovation and agent system deployment for a business is going to be different than someone else as well. And basically, we're going to take all of that and wrap it into our campaigns. And within 4 or 5 days, we're going to find out exactly what's working, what's not working, and we'll scale into what's working and make it better. And that's the name of the game. From there, we'll apply this category of one positioning directly to the sales process. We'll begin helping the team apply it to other forms of marketing. We're going to do some event-based outreach as well, which is going to be fantastic for scaling into enterprise. And overall, yeah, I'm really excited for this business. I'm really excited to just keep up with the kind of track record that we've been building and have a good 2026. So if you have questions about this process or how to get started with Claude Code, or if you have any suggestions for the type of content you'd like to see, please drop it down below. If you want something like this done for your business with all of the offer clarity exercises and surfacing of unique positioning so you can inform your entire business's go-to-market in weeks, not months, and sometimes years, book a call below and we can talk about it. Take care.